located at Patterson and Rogers in Bloomington. Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition along with me as well. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Jim, and I think I know where you're located today, but it's supposed to get up into the 60s here in Georgia, so I might have to hit the driving range today. Not quite clear enough for a full round, but the driving range is open, I believe.
Not for me, baby. I'm still
recuperating.
Still got dozen stitches in that finger, so I'm not. I won't be grabbing any golf clubs. But good luck to you. I was thinking about it though. I was like, gosh, man, it'd be so nice to be able to get out there because in Bloomington the golf courses are still covered with snow.
Yeah. But, they've got the tarps, the green tarps on the greens down here. So I think the only way I can get out in Georgia is to use the driving range. But
get at it, baby, get at it. Well, how's everything else going?
Great basketball I don't know if it was great basketball, but we saw a huge upset last night with Michigan obliterating Purdue, and Iowa looked like an NCAA tournament team the way they took care of Maryland. And, it's just a huge night on the basketball.
Yeah, I don't know. Can you call it a huge upset with Michigan? Because we expected them to be at the top at the start of the year. They just fell off, and I don't know how much of that had to do with what. But we know we saw what they did to Indiana. Right. They shot the ball really well at Assembly Hall. They caught Indiana off of a huge emotional win too, but they shot the ball extraordinarily well. And when you shoot the ball well, good things happen. And they shot the lights out again last night, man. They have that ability. And you have Hunter Dickinson, and you've got a piece there that is just difficult to deal with because he can do so many different things. But Michigan is a team. They're going to fight now to try to get into that NCAA picture. They hurt themselves with some tough losses, but they're a tournament worthy team. But their resume does not speak that yet. But when you add things like a win over Purdue, they have time. Are they going to get to make up those two games that they missed? That's going to be key, because if they can, then they're right back in the picture without question. But doing things like they did last night, they will do that on its own.
Yeah. I mean, that game last night, it looked exactly the way it did against Indiana when they couldn't miss, basically, is what it boiled down to. The only reason I say it was a big upset is because of how it looked. It wasn't Michigan didn't win by 5 or 6 points. I mean, they thoroughly dominated that game, really from about the 10-minute mark of the first half until the end of the game to win by, I don't remember the final, 24 points, 26 points, whatever the final was. They embarrassed a Purdue team that looked
just
really good.
That just embarrassed an Illinois team, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the Big Ten, ladies and gentlemen. Purdue just obliterated an Illinois team that Indiana could not stand up to at home, and then Michigan just goes to destroys them. That's the Big Ten right there on any given night. On any given Sunday in the Big Ten basketball league, it's exactly what it is. It's tough, but yeah, can Michigan get to the NCAA?
I mean, I don't have their schedule in front of me. I know that they got that game against Michigan State rescheduled, so they're going to get the Spartans at home. And look, if they are able to shoot the ball the way they did against Indiana and Purdue, they can beat anybody in the Big Ten. And I feel like I say that about just about any team in the conference. But what I learned this past week with the way Purdue beat Illinois and beat Purdue, and the way Michigan State has lost a couple, they got spanked on the road against Rutgers. There's no elite team in the Big Ten this season. We talked about last year how good the entire conference was top to bottom, and there's just no team that separates itself, in my opinion. There are some really good teams. There are teams I think could potentially make a Final Four push, but I don't see any of that kind of consistency from any team in the Big Ten right now. So I know that there's some highly ranked teams. I know Wisconsin's playing good basketball. Purdue, for the most part, has played really good basketball. Illinois is going to be a threat. I just don't see there being an elite team in the Big Ten one team that you look at immediately and think that's a Final Four team.
Yeah, and question now, will the Big Ten have a number one seed?
Yeah, that is a great question because Purdue for the longest time looked like they could have been the number one seed. They look like they could have been the number one seed. I can't stop laughing.
God, my phone wouldn't stop, man.
They look like they could be the number one seed. They look like Illinois for a while. Look like they might be able to, if they were able to, win a majority of their games out, maybe win the Big Ten tournament, they get a number one seed. Wisconsin, but I don't know that there's any team. We're looking at a couple 2 seeds, maybe. I don't know that there's. Look at some of the teams around, and I know a lot of the teams lost. Auburn lost to Arkansas, but you look at Gonzaga, Arizona. Like I said, Auburn. There are some. I think that there are some teams that are going to edge out Big Ten squads for that number one seed.
Yeah, and who are those potential teams that we don't know? That we know that Auburn is not giving up a number one seed. Who are the ones that are set in stone? Auburn. I mean, to me, Auburn is set in stone. It would take. Well, I mean, they would have to get beat again and then lose in the SEC tournament to Kentucky or something to get bumped out of that.
I would say Gonzaga is probably in that category because they're not going to play anybody else the rest of the way.
No.
So, and they're already ranked number 2, so they're probably locked in at that number one seed. I don't think but that's a team that's playing really good basketball. I mean, for them to beat UCLA and USC in back-to-back games, both of those were ranked teams. State with relative ease. Like, I just really think that the way Arizona's playing, they're playing really good basketball right now, and under Sean Miller. So the 2 number one seed right now.
Well, where did that former coach come from? The Arizona coach. He's a Gonzaga guy, right?
Yeah. I believe you're right. I'd have to go back and check.
No, it is. It is. I was being facetious. He is definitely came. He was an assistant from Gonzaga, so he brought the Gonzaga way down there, and that may be the only thing that allowed Arizona to go from being in the pit of the NCAA investigation with the FBI and all that stuff, because they're one of the schools that still is waiting to hear from the NCAA, as is Kansas and Louisville and all these other schools, which at this point, what do you do when you get to be 2 and 3 seasons away, which that looking like that's going to be, which I hate to jump to a different discussion, but how long is this going to go before that's meted out to these schools? I mean, it's already been 2 seasons, and now we're going to go into a third. It's ridiculous. So you're going to have guys that are coming into college that were freaking sophomores in high school or juniors in high school when this happened. It's getting to be utterly ridiculous.
And the thing that I think is bad about this whole situation is you no longer are punishing, or like the punishment is not going to be for anybody that was involved in the situation. That
could be
probably wasn't going to be right. I mean,
back.
This is why, I mean, I understand why you punish the school and maybe punish the athletic program because they monitoring it the way they need to be. So I understand why you punish the schools, but I mean, at what point do you say, you know what, the players were no longer here, the coaching staff is no longer here, so what's the point in you're basically hurting these kids with an opportunity under the impression that there's going to be no NCAA violation, and then suddenly at the last second, they might hand down a punishment where they're banned from the NCAA tournament. Let's say it's just 2 years. That's typically what a punishment is. So they don't get a play, and they've already signed their and go somewhere else. But I don't understand why it takes this long to come up with these sort of situations, especially now. Like I said, most of the players are probably gone. What even is the point of it now?
Exactly my question. So what will it do? nothing good, not the right thing, not the right message, not to the right people. Right. And to me, it's almost an excuse for the NCAA because they're not good. We all know that they're not going to do the right thing. They rarely have. And now they're going to give themselves an excuse, in my opinion, to not met out the proper punishment and allow these teams to escape and continue without an interruption. And that's what's aggravating, because you look back at what happened to Indiana and all that stuff over what they got punished for. It decimated the damn program over phone calls or text messaging that was changed next year. These are not rules that were going to be changed. These were FBI. The damn FBI was involved in this, is how much it got, how deep it got. But yet, I'm telling you, these schools are going to get away with virtually nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with. I mean, look at what Will Wade and LSU, and to an extent, even the football program down there at LSU has been.
Don't mention that name. That's the one that's
circumstantial, and yet there's been no punishment for that. You look at what happened at UNC with the fake classes, and there was these stupid things. Like I don't remember what Missouri was punished for, but I was not close to what North Carolina or LSU had done. But a couple of years ago. I mean, there's just no ban the NCAA or change leadership or whatever needs to be the case, because there's no consistency with how these things are done. And I know that evidence is a big part of it, but no reason the NCAA can't figure this out.
I hear you, brother. Hey, we got to take a quick break, and we'll be back with plenty more, brought to you by our good friends at Southern Stone Restaurant, located at Patterson and Rogers in Bloomington, where it eats Monday night at 7:05. You can catch Inside Indiana Basketball with Don Fisher and Mike Woodson. Can go there this Monday to do that. I look forward to it. Can't get a better meal. Hey, we're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
I agree, Howie. In the comment section, yes.
What's going on?
Well, look at Alec jumping on.
Where are you?
Say what?
Where are you at? Where in the world is Jim today?
Just in a room somewhere.
In casual wear.
Yeah.
In my shorts? Yeah, I'm in my shorts.
We can come back whenever. I'm going to add commercials in post.
Oh, we usually just do 3 minutes.
Okay.
It makes it easier. It makes it easier on you, because that's the exact amount of time you need. How's Mr. Alec going? You've never been on with Dustin, have you?
I think once or twice, but not in a long time.
Oh, I didn't know if you all had met.
Yeah, it's definitely been a while.
Good stuff, or not? Exciting stuff last night. That wasn't. Someone said underwear shot. Those are swimming shorts. Thank you.
Well, I couldn't get through my comment because I thought it was.
There's swimming shorts.
Oh.
Oh man.
I was wondering what you were laughing about. I'm like, what's he laughing about?
Yeah, you got up to get your phone and
yeah, from a distance. It was like that James Franklin, when he was showing his paintball wound and he lifted up his shorts in front of the media.
I did not see that. No, I did not. That's funny.
Probably 3, but they took the guy's paintball and he had this right below his butt, and he pulled his shorts up to show everybody when he was doing his press conference.
Add it to the list of Jim Coyle clips.
There you go.
That list is definitely long.
Man. Looks like semi-rivalry week in the Big Ten, isn't it?
Yeah, they've definitely some weird rivalry weeks that kind of come and go. Sometimes it's like half of the league does it a certain week, the other half does it another week, and definitely weird.
Yeah.
Where'd Jim go?
It looks like he's rebuffering.
You were breaking up a little bit there, Dustin, during the first segment, though. But
I know I think my internet keeps going in and out. I don't know. I can't.
I do like the change of background since I've been on, though.
Oh yeah, this has been the case for a while now. Okay.
Yeah, I was trying to switch over to my freaking hotspot that's sitting right beside me, and God, I'm so tired of that thing not working well.
Hotspot.
And with the crap.
All right, 3 minutes is up.
Give me a countdown.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends at Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. I hope you guys are having a great day. Alec Lasley joined us. Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition, kind enough to join me today. But Alec joins us from thehoosier.com. Alec, how are you doing, brother?
Good, guys. How are you doing?
Can't complain. What's new with you?
Not a whole lot. Obviously, it seems to be like you're in a fun spot on this Friday going into this weekend. Seems a bit different than your usual basement area.
Why does that make it fun? It doesn't make it fun, trust me. Yeah, it doesn't make you never know. I'm always working, boys. 7 days a week. You know, I just killing myself down, fingers to the bone, literally.
Yeah, literally.
Alec Lasley from thehoosier.com. Dustin mentioned last night, big up. You can call it an upset. Michigan not just beating Purdue, but just kicking the crap out of them. A game after they destroyed the team that I thought was potentially trying to work their way to be the elite team. And that's another thing that Dustin mentioned. There is no elite team in the Big Ten this year. We thought that Purdue was going to, at the beginning of the year, we thought Michigan was going to be that team. Then we thought Purdue was going to be that team. And then here of late, I thought Illinois was going to be that team. Maybe the Big Ten is just either not going to produce that team this year, or this play is going to produce that team.
Yeah, I still think Illinois is that team. I just think Purdue, just like with many teams, is just a really bad matchup for them. But if you look at Illinois matched up against definitely almost any other team in the Big Ten, but even in the country, most teams don't have a big guy or a group of big guys who can really slow down Kofi. And Purdue's the only team that really does. And obviously, Illinois doesn't have a lot of backup bigs that they can really throw at Purdue. Not that many teams do, and that's why Purdue has done such a good job as of late. But when you get into a matchup where you do have a few bigs where you can throw at them, not to say that Michigan really does, but they have a couple more bodies that they can really rotate in and out there than maybe Illinois does. And obviously, they hit their threes. But I just still think Illinois is the team to beat in the Big Ten. I think they have all the pieces. As long as Trent Frazier, which it looks like he is going to be healthy moving forward. I think that the way that they space around Kofi Cockburn and the way that they're going to be able to bring most likely Andre Curbelo off of the bench for the remainder of the season here, as long as he's playing up to good Andre Curbelo level, and not really forcing a lot of the issue because he doesn't need to. I think he's starting to realize he doesn't need to force a lot because they have so many different pieces and definitely so many pieces on the perimeter. that I think Illinois is definitely the team to come out of the Big Ten, and you look at them as a Final Four team. I still am not sold on this backcourt unit of Purdue in big time games when they see a lot of ball pressure, whether it's full court, whether it's half court, they really struggle. And the guards are obviously good for Purdue, but you need to be able to get the ball to the big guys. They play a lot of inside out, obviously. And if you're not able to break the pressure or get some sort of pass into your bigs and create your offense that way, then you're not gonna be able to score a lot of points. And they just really struggle a lot with that kind of ball pressure. And you've seen it against you saw it against NC State earlier in the year. You saw it against Iowa in 2 games that they almost collapsed in the last 2 minutes because of the full court press. And you saw it a little bit last night with Michigan too. So that's my biggest issue with Purdue. And they've really hit a wall in the Big Ten. And it's just it's a little bit concerning when you think they could have an off night and at any point in the season here, and they obviously come NCAA tournament time, it's one and done. And that's just one thing that they've struggled with, trying to get those matchup advantages in the NCAA tournament. And if you're not able to do that with your guard play, you're going to struggle.
Well, yeah, and the thing to me, Alec, sorry to cut you off, Jim, but the thing to me, Alec, about Purdue is that has been there. What they've been able to rely on is their defense, and it's not there this season. I mean, I think they rank 160th in points allowed per game, and then you look at opponent field goal percentage, and it's in the 150s, I think. So this is a team that traditionally, when their offense hasn't been there, they've been able to rely on their defense and maybe win a game 50-48. But that's not the case this season. I think we've seen too many times if Purdue's not scoring, they're not gonna beat a good team. And I don't even think Michigan's not a great team. They're a solid team, but to me, there's no excuse for a team as talented as Purdue to lose by 24 points on the road against an average Michigan team.
Yeah, and we've seen them lose against average teams a lot this year. Not that they've lost a lot, obviously, but come Big Ten play, they really struggle, right? I mean, I think we can all say at this point, Indiana's an average team. You can say that about Rutgers as well, obviously, though Rutgers has been playing a lot better over the last 2 weeks here. But all those games, they're very similar in the way that obviously different scores and different the way that the game was played, but different, very similar styles in terms of how Indiana, Michigan, and then Rutgers tried to play Purdue. And I think you're starting to see a blueprint of how to beat Purdue. And that's concerning as someone who wants to see a Purdue team go a little bit further, or as someone on that coaching staff. It's not something that you obviously want to see, especially this time in the season. And just like you said, I think it starts defensively. And if they're able to get out in transition, they're a much better team because they don't have to deal with a lot of that ball pressure from opposing defenses. But if they're not able to do that, right, then they're going to force some things. Jaden Ivey's obviously playing at an All-American level. He's playing almost at a National Player of the Year level, but he still has his moments where you can easily tell he gets rattled. He gets frustrated if things aren't going as easy as they can come to him sometimes. And he forces a lot of things. And he had 5 or 6 turnovers last night. Obviously last night, you can kind of throw that out maybe in the whole grand scheme of things, but it's still the same script that once they get down early, he tries to force the issue, and that kind of balloons that lead from maybe 10 to 12 into 17-19, which we saw most of that second half in that Michigan game last night.
Yeah, here's a point that I was going to bring up. They're also susceptible on the defensive end. We've seen that happen, and that's obviously that becomes a problem when you get to tournament play for them. So that's going to be something to watch. Indiana now with the rise of Michigan. Before you joined us, is talking about Michigan's trying to play their way into the tournament. They're not a tournament team right now, but they damn sure looked like a tournament team in beating Purdue, and they have the opportunity to play themselves into being a tournament team here at the end of the season, just like Indiana has the ability to play themselves out of being a tournament team, which we'll get to right here next. because that's what's in the offing for them. Indiana is a tournament team, but has to stay that. They can play themselves out of that after that unfortunate loss at on the road at Northwestern. Their margin for error has shrunk, and their schedule has not changed. It's just as tough as it was going to be. You got to play the top teams in the Big Ten coming up here, starting with Michigan State tomorrow, and which is not going to be an easy opportunity for them on the road, no less.
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously this 3-game stretch that they're in right now with Michigan State, Wisconsin, Ohio State is obviously one of the tougher stretches here in the Big Ten. Not that you typically have a lot of off nights and easy nights when it comes to the schedule, but that's a really difficult 3-game stretch, especially with 2 on the road, coming off of a really, I think, devastating loss for Indiana to Northwestern, not just for tournament hopes, bubble talk, anything like that, but just the mental edge that I think we were starting to see some of the IU players play with. And I think that was just a very deflating loss earlier this week, just with obviously everything going on and going into that game. And now you look at Indiana, and the 2 games that I think you circle on the calendar here going in is obviously you have this 3-game stretch, but then you have that Minnesota game on the road, and then Rutgers at home in the last week and a half there. I think those are looking a little bit deeper. 2 of the more important games coming down the stretch. Rutgers and Indiana probably going to be in a very similar spot at that point still in the season. Both could either play their way in or play their way out here in the next week and a half, and we'll obviously be able to adjust kind of expectations for that game. But then going into Minnesota, you can't lose a game to a non-tournament team. I don't care if it's on the road or at home at that point in the season with a week and a half left. And if they can get those 2 wins, I think as long as you get 1 out of these ranked wins coming in, and then who knows what happens against Purdue right in the last game of the season, I think Indiana will be just fine. I think they're fine still right now. But obviously we've seen these Indiana teams over the last few seasons hit a real big wall right around early to mid-February and struggle to close games out coming in. And we've seen at this point in the season with a lot of losing streaks. And so I think obviously this Michigan State game is definitely big, but in the whole grand scheme of things, I think that last week and a half of the season probably is going to hold a lot more weight than I think people expect right now and expected about 10 days ago.
Dustin, I think, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that when you look at this game on Saturday against Michigan State, it intrigues me because I think it could potentially be a really good matchup for Indiana if they're at full strength this weekend. You look at Indiana's defense is outstanding. It's the best in the Big Ten. You look at Michigan State, what have they struggled with? They've struggled with turning the basketball over. They've also got into some shooting lulls. They struggled, especially early against Rutgers. They didn't shoot the ball well against Wisconsin. The one concern, I think Indiana has a real shot to go on the road and get that win, steal a victory at the Breslin Center. My one concern, though, if I'm an IU fan, is Michigan State has lost 2 straight, and there's probably nobody better at firing his team up in February and then March in Tom Izzo. So what are your thoughts on this matchup coming up? I like it from the defensive standpoint from Indiana, but you got to be able to find some baskets too. Yeah, definitely. I think the one thing, and I've talked to a couple different people about this Michigan State team, right, is they don't have that guy who I think a lot of people feel comfortable with going down the stretch. If you need a tough bucket to go to, they've always had that guy on the wing, the perimeter, someone who they can go to. I think everyone wants it to be Max Christie, but he's still a freshman, right? He's still going to have those freshman moments. He's still going to have those ups and downs. I think he is that guy if he can continue to get that confidence late in the season here, because I love Gabe Brown's game, but he's not a guy who you can throw out there one-on-one and have him get his own bucket. And that's what you need late in these games. And you need that on the perimeter. And Michigan State doesn't have that. And that's why they do struggle and go in some of these long stretches without scoring a lot of points, because they don't have true bucket getters that you need when you're in a lull.
And I think a lot of that goes to point guard play, right? I mean, you look at the really, really good Michigan State teams, which has obviously been for most of the last decade, and it's been because of good point guard play. And, Tyson Walker's had his ups and downs this year. He's played really well in certain games and won them a few games this year. But you look at the last 3 or 4 games, and he's not being the playmaker that I think a lot of people thought that he was going to be, especially at this point in the season. But he's being more of a liability just with the sheer fact that he's turning the ball over at a much higher rate than he was kind of the last month heading into this last 3-game stretch. So I think you look at the point guard play as the huge thing for this matchup. I think Trayce Jackson-Davis is going to struggle again. I think that's a huge issue moving down the stretch here for Indiana. I'm very concerned with the way that he has been playing. I think that we've seen it over the course of his career now, right around this time when Indiana struggles. A large portion of that is due to Trayce Jackson-Davis's struggles, and a large portion of that is due to the amount of minutes that he has to play up to this point. And I think you're starting to see that a little bit more now too. And you're starting to see with no real versatility in his game, defenses, once they see him second time through, or once they have 10, 15 games to really go off of and watch film, he's not that difficult, quote unquote, not that difficult to defend because he has 1 or 2 moves and what he's going to do, and he can't stretch the floor. And so I think that point guard matchup, if Indiana's guards can play well and Xavier Johnson can bounce back after obviously not playing earlier this week, I think that's the matchup, because Tyson Walker, a much smaller guard, Xavier Johnson, a much bigger guard, a much longer guard, who can kind of disrupt that passing lane a little bit. And then on the offensive end, be able to kind of fly by Walker when he needs to get downhill. And I think that's going to be the matchup for Indiana. But you talked a little bit about Michigan State's shooting ability, right? I mean, they don't take a lot of threes, but they take a lot of really good threes. And they're shooting about 39% as a team. And that's the one scary thing. If they can get hot, you look at Hauser, if he's going to play well and kind of be that stretch forward that puts Indiana in a big matchup problem, then you have him, Hall, and, a few different big guys who can really stretch the floor, which Indiana has struggled with, obviously, pulling away those bigger guys and not being able to keep the guards in front of them and having an open lane for any of those Michigan State guards as well. So I think those are the 2 key things, but I think it's going to be interesting to see how Trayce Jackson-Davis matches up against, some physical big men, but also some more athletic and longer big guys who we struggled with in past.
And not only this, now the question comes, how's Indiana going to respond to what they've just gone through? Everyone is going to be available for the game tomorrow, but what confidence does Mike Woodson have in people like Michael Durr, Christian Lander? They've already shown this week that decision-making is not their forte. And that's has to go into his head. I don't know what's going on in practice this week. That's key. How much confidence does he have in certain guys in certain places now? And all year long, the fans have been asking for this player or that player. And I kept saying, if they're not playing, there's a damn reason they're not playing. I promise you. And that will be the case this week. There's a reason if someone's not in there that they're not in there. And it doesn't necessarily have to be punishment. It's confidence. What confidence does Mike Woodson have in these guys in these roles? Now, Xavier Johnson is someone that, of course, they miss. They missed horribly. Trey Galloway can fill that spot a little bit, but he's not Xavier Johnson. He does not have the speed. He can stop Boo Buie. I mean, Indiana had no one that could get in front of Boo Buie the other night, and that's a Northwestern guard. Not to knock him. He's a great athlete, but man, he was the fastest guy on the court, and you can't be that when you're in Indiana trying to make the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it comes down to, right, Indiana is definitely a team that has the tools there to be very successful coming down the stretch. But I think it's just really what happened over the last week. You at this point in the season, you need your leaders to take an extra step up. This is when you see teams playing their best basketball going into late February. And to have not only 5 players, but 2 starters, two guys who mean a great deal to this team in their own ways, but 3 upperclassmen, whether or not they've been with the program for more than 6 months or not, 3 guys who have been through college for multiple years and multiple seasons. And obviously some of that has to do with, some of the programs that they were at before and the culture there. But it's just really concerning to see guys like that, especially Xavier Johnson, who was really, I thought, turning the corner, not only with his play, obviously, but with his leadership ability. And to see what transpired over the last week is more concerning than, going 0 for 10 on a certain night on the floor. Because on the floor, you're going to be able to fix those things. And obviously, if they're not on the floor, then that's a much more negative issue than missing a few shots. And so I think it's going to be really interesting to see the first 5 to 10 minutes of this Michigan State game and see how they respond, and especially the guys who were not available, to see how they respond, because they are going to need to step up, right? I mean, those guys played 37, 38, 39 minutes against Northwestern, who were in there, and they've been shouldering a lot of the load, right, with Trace Jackson Davis and Race Thompson for most of the season. So these guys coming back need to step up in a big way, need to show that obviously what they did in the past, and they're ready to move forward here, but they need to step up for Indiana in order to obviously get this game in the win column, but push Indiana to that level where they were playing just, again, 2 weeks ago, before it seems like the season's kind of come off the rails here in the last week and a half.
And that loss, Dustin, to Northwestern did not knock Indiana out of the tournament by any stretch of the imagination, but it certainly brought their margin for error down quite a bit. You talk about going on the road. That now you have to go to Minnesota and win that game. That's not a gimme, even though their record shows what they are. They're I think probably second to bottom from the bottom in the league, but you can't go lose there. That's a hard thing to have on this team, because this team has not shown me they can just go someplace and just win solidly on the road. They haven't done that. They've struggled on the road mightily.
Right. I think, Alec brings up a good point. In some of those games, we still have Maryland, Minnesota, you still have Rutgers. Those have become, I don't want to label them as must-win games, but they become even more important with the Northwestern loss. And then you still have 4 ranked teams. You still have, as we talked about, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Ohio State, and then you finish out the season on the road against Purdue. I mean, there are opportunities there to where if you win 2 of those games against those ranked opponents, you're probably in. But you've got to also take care of business against those teams that Indiana should beat. But at times, look, you go back to that. Look at a couple of these losses. You let that Wisconsin game slip away. You should have probably beat Penn State on the road. And I know Penn State's a little bit better this year than what a lot of people thought, but you probably should have won that game. And then if you're at full strength, you probably beat Northwestern by double figures. Although Northwestern has been they've hung around so many games this season. It's crazy to see how many games they've lost by such a small margin. But Indiana's had their opportunities. Now is a time, as Alex said, you got to start playing your best basketball, and the games you should win now become in those must-win situations. And I think when you have so many games against high-quality opponents, we're going to really find out down this final, 7-8 game stretch, exactly what this team is made of.
Alec?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I said, it comes down to, obviously you want to win these 3 ranked games in some fashion, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 of them, right? I don't think we expect Indiana to go 3 for 3, especially with 2 of them being on the road. But that last kind of stretch of those Minnesota and Rutgers games that I touched on earlier, and Dustin just touched on, those are, I think, the 2 most important games coming in here, just due to the sheer fact that you don't expect Indiana to go 3 for 3 or honestly even 2 for 3 in this next 3 game stretch, and you still have Purdue, and you can't drop the games that you need to win in order to showcase that you're an NCAA tournament team. And Indiana has struggled with playing to the level of their competition at times this season, even dating back to the St. John's in the second half, or the Syracuse game, which turned out to be obviously an absolute devastating loss for their resume. And some of these other games, it really could have gone a lot differently. So Indiana needs to buckle in and really show that they're a tournament team, but show that they're a tournament team by winning the games that they need to win, and not necessarily winning those ranked games, because they already have some really good quality wins. It's not about getting more quality wins in order to make it in there. It's just about winning the games that you should win, and then you'll be fine.
We were missed a break, so we got to hit that real quick. Alec, I don't know if you can stick around for a few more minutes before we hit the next one or not. Hopefully so. And we'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios Annex, brought to you by our good friends at Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. They're #1 because they've got the best deals. Go check them out. We'll be back with more right after this.
Yeah, I can hang around for another segment.
It doesn't have to be a full one because I went long. Will, I'm trying to keep track. Where are we on? Let's see.
Zach is not going to be on today, and Jeffrey is on for 9:50.
Right. Oh no, I know that. I'm just trying to. I meant segment wise.
We're in the second ad break out of the 5.
Right, but they're not timed right. We're out of sequence.
I wasn't sure on the sequence. I was not informed.
Well, I'm just saying. I'm trying to do that, but
typically go to 9:27-ish.
Yeah.
And that's when you take that third break.
Yeah.
I just have to say that I'm still not used to them calling Rutgers the Jersey Mike's Arena or whatever it's called.
Yep.
Oh, they changed. I did not. When did that happen?
I think it was before this year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was either right before this year or literally like right in the beginning of the season. It was yeah. I honestly thought it was a joke at first because I saw some people like Photoshop Jersey Mike's logo on the rack, and I'm like, oh, that's funny. And then I come to find out that was actually it, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. That's pretty funny. And they had the logo on the floor too.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
The only thing I could think of would be worse would be like White Castle or something.
Well, there's that.
The White Castle.
Their football stadium is SHI Stadium too. Like they've got the worst names in the Big Ten. I don't know what SHI is, but I would not.
Good thing is SHI. Good thing. Oh my God! Tell me how much that is defaced. How easily is that defaced?
I know when they made the change. I can't remember what it was before.
You can deface that with a religious symbol.
Rutgers fans were livid about that name change.
Well, I guess so. I would be too, because you can deface that with a religious symbol and turn it into crap. No pun intended. Absolutely pun intended. Pun absolutely intended.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll give you countdown. 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Feed Radio, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios Annex, brought to you by our good friends at Andy Moore Honda Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. Hope you're having a great day. Alec Lasley from thehoosier.com with us, Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition along as well, talking about this weekend's contest with Indiana and Michigan State, along with the Big Ten, but Indiana now in a position they need to win. I don't need to know that they have to beat one of these ranked teams, Alec. But boy, it would sure help them because they had gained a point of, to me, where I think that they may have played themselves out of that 8 seed. But man, for them to do that now, they're going to have to. I don't know that one win won't do it. You're not. I mean, I think they'll have to beat 2 of these high-profile teams to get out of that 8-9 seed spot, not to get into the tournament, just to get out of that 8-9 seed spot that I would or lower that they're in, because what that means is you win, you're playing either number one or something like that. But I think that to do that, that's what they're going to have to accomplish.
Yeah, I honestly find it difficult for them to get out of that 8-9 matchup. I think honestly, regardless of what they do, they're not going to move up a ton unless they go on a nice run in the Big Ten tournament, and they bundle that in with potentially 3 of these ranked wins, just because I don't see unfortunately Indiana beating the 3 teams of Maryland, Minnesota, and Rutgers all together. I think they're going to drop at least one of those. And so when you look at their resume as a whole, right, I just don't see them as a 7 or better. And I think it's better that way for Indiana too. I think they'd be a much more dangerous team as a 10 seed than being an 8, 9, 7 or anything like that. Just due to the fact that they are streaky, which can be good, obviously, at certain times, especially in the NCAA tournament. But you don't obviously want to be in that 8-9 matchup and face one team where I think the 4 1 seeds are clearly whatever order they're going to be in, right? Once we get to selection Sunday, those 4 1 seeds are, I think, now starting to separate themselves from most of the rest of the field in terms of just kind of dominance in the way that they're playing. But I just don't see Indiana moving a whole lot up. I can see them dropping another seed line down. But I just, unless they win 3 out of those 4 ranked teams coming in, ranked opponents coming in, I don't see them moving up a whole lot.
And then they have the opportunity in the Big Ten tournament to do some damage there. And that tends to get you more attention, actually, rather than doing it in season. If they were to go on a mini run in the Big Ten tournament and you beat 2 of those teams, then I think that they could possibly get out of that in that scenario. But I agree with you. It's, everyone's looking at their body of work, and there's nothing to move them out of that. But when you do that under the tournament lights, it seems to shine a little brighter, and it sticks because you're a week away from, well, hell, you're not even a week away. You're days away from the committee's determination. So that could be their if they could go on some kind of run. That's the only way I see them of getting out of that 8-9 bubble. Yeah,
and honestly, they haven't shown the ability to go on a long extended run for honestly the last 5 years, and so I don't expect them to do that. They've really struggled in the Big Ten tournament, even dating back to the Zeller years and the Yogi years and everything like that. So I don't see that really changing, and honestly, I don't think that's a huge factor for them. I don't put a lot of for the most part, stock into conference tournaments. I'd much rather them see, a 4 or 5 game winning streak in the regular season, and then potentially win one in the conference tournament, and then bow out in the second round. I think sometimes, obviously, you get the magical runs from like the UConns or the VCUs or anything like that come the NCAA tournament and leading in from their conference championships. But for the most part, you see a lot of these higher profile teams from these bigger conferences really kind of bow out a little bit earlier in the NCAA tournament, just because they're playing a lot more games. They don't have a lot of rest, obviously, in the conference tournament. So I don't really put a lot of stock into those deep conference tournament runs.
This is okay. You bring up a great point, because this has been the thing I've complained about for years. Is I wish that there was like a 2-week grace period where, a couple of years ago, the Big Ten, when they were in Washington, D.C., or I think it was when they played Madison Square Garden, it was actually a week earlier. Yeah. And to me, that's a better circumstance. Like right now, the way it works out, I'm the same. If I'm a fan, I don't care how much. I almost want my team to win their first game, maybe lose the second one, and get that week long of rest and start preparing and get off your feet a little bit. If you make that deep run, guess what? You get a Thursday game. You're playing then what amounts to potentially 5-6 games in basically a week long period, 10 days. That's a lot of basketball, and I know it prepares you for the NCAA tournament. But I go back to that year, 2015 or 16, when Michigan State won the Big Ten tournament and beat a really good Purdue team in the championship game, and then got beat by Middle Tennessee State as the 2 seed. So I just wish, and I'm glad somebody else has brought this up, because I'm the same way. I'd rather see a team. If I'm a fan, I don't care if my team gets to the championship game, because I want them rested heading into that NCAA tournament.
Yeah, because this is not a team that's going to be playing on that Saturday. I'm sorry, but for the fans, but this is not going to happen. Like Alex said, they have done nothing to show that they have that ability. I mean, beating Purdue, one game does not do that, because we saw what they did when they came back. They were flat as a sheet of paper on a desk. So they would have to put together a run of 4 days. Well, I'm assuming they'll get a Wednesday bye probably, but they'll be playing Thursday. I'm trying to think, how many days is it? It ends on Saturday now, right? It used to go to Sunday. But it is till Sunday now.
It's still Wednesday through Sunday, I believe.
Okay, so they'll get a Wednesday bye, but they'll have to play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I just, like Alex said, I've not seen them do anything that convinces me that they can play 4 days in a row. They can win 3 days in a row.
And you don't want that from this Indiana team, right? Obviously, it'd be great to go win the Big Ten conference tournament, but one, I put a lot more weight into the regular season championships and titles than I do the conference tournaments, because any team can get hot there, but playing for obviously a 2-3 month stretch is a lot more difficult to do. But this Indiana team does not. Obviously, you want to see them get back in the NCAA tournament. That's the first and foremost goal of the next 3 weeks here. But because we've talked about how streaky this team is, all you need is a performance like you had against Ohio State, or a performance like you had against the first half of Wisconsin, or the game that you had against Purdue. And now you start to get a little bit more momentum than maybe you would have, win a game or two. And then once you get to, past that first round in the NCAA tournament, with all the upsets that go on, you could catch a break, get a really low seed that is coming off of a super high upset, and then go on a little run, right? And then it's all about matchups. And the one thing that I think Mike Woodson really does really well is preparing this team for certain matchups. There's sometimes, obviously, during the games that he struggled a little bit in adjusting to, obviously, we've seen it with zone defenses, but for the most part, he knows what to do matchup wise, and he knows how to capitalize on some of those mismatches that he has, or vice versa, that they don't have. And that's going to be something that I think, assuming, right, that they do get in the NCAA tournament, they do have the leg up when it comes to maybe some other coaching staffs, just due to the sheer fact that this Indiana team has shown the ability, right, for a game or two to play probably way above what their average is this season. And that's obviously due to the schemes and the system that they put in for each specific matchup. So that's where I think, especially some of these other Big Ten teams really struggle. And you look at Purdue as a team that definitely struggles that way. And that's why they've really haven't made any of those deep runs with some of these really good teams as of late, because they play those traditional two bigs for the most part, and they struggle against those quicker, smaller teams if they start knocking down threes. And that's just kind of one thing that I think, one reason why you don't want a long run in the Big Ten tournament is so you can get fresh legs, get prepared, and then try to win, one or two different matchups in the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely, Alec. Looking forward to it, man. Appreciate you as always, and make sure that they give him a follow at Lasley, so he can give you complete coverage this weekend, as always, from thehoosier.com. Appreciate you, man. Have a great weekend.
All right, appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
Absolutely. Hey, we're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Any More Honda, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. Right after this. Man, it's weird with not having.
Oh, yeah, it's always weird when you're waiting for stuff to get edited in post. I've done it before.
Yeah, well, it's the timing and all that. It's weird to do it.
Did you get to do any winter snow sports when we had our little bit of snow and ice we had?
Man, I don't know. I was gone gone all the time, and I have no interest in winter sports, playing in the snow anymore. It's too cold. If it's snowing and my winter sport is to be inside.
My sport of choice was I went to Cincinnati yesterday for a ski resort and out in Cincinnati, Perfect North.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that place.
Nice. I would like to learn how to
Dude,
snowboard.
you live 30 minutes from.
Oh, I know. Paoli Peaks is much not as nearly as nice as Perfect
No,
North.
trust me, I haven't been there in 30 years, and I know that. It was ice back then, and I'm sure it's still ice.
I'd rather drive the extra, 40 minutes to go someplace with double the hills and twice as nice.
Huh.
Yeah, this is exactly what I was going to be talking about next.
You have to make the tournament this year to avoid fan apathy.
Exactly what I was going to be talking about next. They just have to make the tournament this year, the program really needs to make the tournament because they were on target. I mean, not that they're not now, but
Right.
it's taken a little. It's bruised and battered. They still have the resume, but it's a little more bruised than it was. And I think it's not just the loss. And I want to say this, but there's no way the committee is made up of academics, the people that come from these schools.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they forget about the reason Indiana lost to Northwestern, because they have a team full of guys that make bad decisions. That's not like, I know some people say, well, they keep that in consideration for injuries. Yes, they do, but I don't think they take stupid into consideration.
No, I mean, you can't punish another team because their players didn't get in trouble. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, well, they lost that game, but they were without 5 players. I get that, but why should that punish another team that could potentially, let's say they're on the bubble? Why would that punish another team? Because they had all their players for every game because they did the right things.
Ready to come back?
You bet.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios Annex. Talking about in the break, somebody was talking about the Olympics, I think. Five Lefts mentioned, why do most of the women that ski and snowboard on the Olympic team look like models? What would you rather they didn't? No, that's a good question. I don't know, but I haven't seen it. I have not watched any of the Olympics. I have not watched a single minute of the Olympics. Not this season.
Jeez.
And that's not normal, but I haven't. Also, Tim said that X tweeted out he will respond, and I fully expect that he will, because to me, he was the guy that he's a floor leader, and yeah, he's new to the team as being a transfer, but he's a senior, and you have to, if you can't depend on your upperclassmen to do the right thing, if you can't depend on your floor leader to be a leader, I know the concerns that Mike Whitson has. That's got to scare you to death. And that's what has to be most disappointing to him. And I get it. I mean, not that all of them didn't disappoint. They did. But, and all of them made a horrendous decision. But will they respond? And that's the thing. How will they respond? How will this team respond?
Well, I think that's what everybody's going to be waiting to see, right? The key now is you did what you did. You served your punishment, and now you're going to be back on the floor. You can't leave it at one bad mistake. I made a bad decision. That's the end of it. And then you go out and you play ball and you become a leader. I think that's still a very possible option. All 5 of those players have an opportunity to look. There's no question that at this point in the season, and with Indiana on the bubble and trying to make a push for the NCAA tournament and string together some wins, there's no question that the judgment was off. But at the same time, they also learned a valuable lesson, and it kind of sends a message. Like you can look at this in a bittersweet light, right? Like Mike Woodson isn't going to let this stuff fly, and I think players are going to learn that. And so it took maybe this point in the season for them to learn that. But now you move on. You can't go and sit and pout in the corner. And it sounds like Xavier Johnson is wanting to step up and say, I'm going to be a leader. I made a bad decision. I own it. Now let's go make a tournament run. Let's go win 2 of these next 3 games. I mean, they think they can win every game, but let's win 2 of these next 3 games. Let's get some games we're not supposed to win and then take care of business. So I think that's what more people are looking for. Like if you beat Michigan State on Saturday, I guarantee you nobody's talking about that Northwestern game. It's just how it is. You go out and you play well and you get a win, a game that a lot of people are counting you out of, and it's gonna hide a lot of the negative.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And that's what they have to do. That's the thing. And that's what I've said. If they want to erase that, they have to do that. And I just haven't seen them, other than the Purdue win, muster that up. I know they have the ability, but I just haven't seen them really do it.
I mean, I would say they did that in the Ohio State game. They did it. They did it for half of the game against Wisconsin. It's about sustaining it.
Right. I mean, I meant for the entire game.
But Jim, this is also maybe this is something that puts a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, and I'm going to go prove to coach what I can do. I'm going to go to prove what I mean. Maybe this puts some sort of chip on their shoulder. You never know how these kind of situations. I didn't get to play last game. In a way, they're more rested, you could say, for Saturday's game against Michigan State, right? They didn't have to play on Wednesday, so I think that there's there are negative.
Sometimes the night on the town can take it out of you.
That's true. I just think it's easy to lament on the negative part of it, but to me now I'm looking forward to, okay, how can we spin this thing into a positive? And look, I think Mike Woodson, and the reason I am taking this optimistic outlook is because I think Mike Woodson has already surpassed expectations. They beat Purdue for the first time in since 2016. They got a big ranked win over Ohio State. They've played really well. They've played much more consistently on the road. They still have some of those issues at times. They've let some games slip away. But I think that you're starting to see, like, Mike Woodson is going to take this team probably to the NCAA tournament. I think that they're not going to be favored probably in any of these next 3 games. I think they'll win at least one of them. I think they can beat Wisconsin, Michigan State, or Ohio State. They're potentially even able to get 2 of them. So I just think there's a lot more faith in what Mike Woodson has done and how he's got his players to respond, where I think that those 5 guys who served that suspension are going to come out with a chip on their shoulder against Michigan State. That's where I see this headed.
I agree with you, and this is a great point by Five Lefts. Talking about boneheaded decisions, Yogi Ferrell trying to use the fake ID to get into a bar in Bloomington. Are you kidding me? And then that was followed immediately by Hannah Masperea getting the DUI, I believe. So that was back when real bad stuff was going on. But yeah, I agree with you. But moving onward and upward. Fred asked, all IU players technically can come back next year. Who does? How are scholarships affected? That's generally determined by the coaching staff. And I'll tell you right now, I would be shocked if everybody on this roster is back next season, and I don't mean just one of them. And I'm not going to give prognostications on names, but I think that there are going to be a couple that may move along. A lot of people wondered what Rob Finney was going to do. And now, really, what you wonder, will he come back? That plantar fasciitis. I don't know how he's doing with that. Don't know if he's going to make it back this season or not. We'll just have to wait and see on that. Next year will be a different thing. Don't know what he's going to do because he is one of those guys that's in that decision mode. I don't think he is a guy that's going to be run off, and that happens a lot. But I don't think he's going to be one of, because he doesn't make boneheaded decisions, and that's just good to have on your team. And B, it's not good to run off someone who has given you good years.
Right.
Doesn't matter that he hasn't been an All-American. He's given you his heart and soul. So you know what? He's not going to be run off. So it will be his decision on whether or not he comes back. But there are a couple of guys I'll be surprised to see back.
Well, and I think that a lot of people are looking at the COVID NCAA waiver. I've said from the beginning, whether it's basketball or football or some other sport, after probably about 2 years, there's going to be a period where coaches are like, you've been here 4 or 5 years. It's time to move on. And that's not necessarily kicking them out of the program, but we also have to continue to bring in young talent and give them roster spots. We have to open up scholarship opportunities. So that's why I think you're going to see an influx probably in the transfer portal after this year, maybe even after next year. But things are going to start to slow down. Like those kids who were freshmen during that COVID year, there are going to be certain circumstances where a coach says, yeah, you can come back. We would love to have you back. But there's going to be other circumstances where, you've played here 4 years. You've been here. If you want to hit the transfer portal, great. But we have some young players and we need to give them scholarship opportunities. Because the other thing that people aren't talking about, and this is a little bit off topic, so I apologize for going off topic, but the other thing that the people don't understand is when you extend this COVID, and I do think that there should be that rule. I think the NCAA made the right move, but how many scholarships are you taking away from young athletes?
Oh, well, we talked about this.
It affects people at the high school level. There are kids that are probably not going to get a college education because of that. And I understand it's, that all of us dealt with a ton of stuff back in 2020 and 2021, but that's why
I don't know
think
if it's just this though, Dustin, but when you add in the transfer portal to that,
right, exactly,
that just magnifies it tenfold. And the transfer portal may be hurting worse than the COVID situation, because now a coach, especially a basketball coach, when you've only got 13 spots you've got to fill, looks down. It's like walking into a grocery store and going down aisle 14 to get what you want. Right.
And to me, I think those two things work hand in hand, because like I mentioned, instead of, let's say player X has been at Indiana for 5 years, had the COVID and had a red shirt, so he still got 1 year of eligibility. Well, instead of that kid moving on to the next phase of his life, whether it's the NBA or a business opportunity or whatever the case, now if Mike Woodson says, you've spent your time here, we're going to move on, we got some younger guys we're bringing in, that guy is now got the chance to hit the transfer portal, and he could transfer to Michigan. He could transfer to Evansville. And so how many players entered? Like, wasn't it over 1,000 players entered the transfer portal last year? Like, that's not good for the game. And it's taking away so many opportunities. So I think when you combine those two things, these kids are getting an extra year of eligibility and they're transferring out. It just takes away so many opportunities at the high school level. And I just hope that at some point this levels out and evens out, so that way we're not taking these scholarship opportunities away from high school student athletes who, a lot of times some of these kids may not get a chance to get an education, or with the way how expensive this stuff gets to be. It's just, that's my little soapbox speech about how poorly everything's kind of been handled at the NCAA level.
Speaking of tomorrow, Indiana taking on Michigan State. The starting lineup has not changed this year, and I fully expect that to happen for the first time tomorrow. I've not heard anything to lead me to think that. Is just my own opinion. I don't expect to see Parker Stewart in the starting lineup. But that may be wrong as rain. Mike Woodson may say, you know what, I'm still leaving everything the same. I want it to be the way it is. I think it's not and this is not for punishment. I think it's the move that needs to be made. I think Trey Galloway needs to be in that starting lineup because I think they need to get off to better starts. They need to be the best team that they can be, period. And you rotate. You don't take everybody out. You just rotate them through that. But you have as many of the best players on the floor at all times as you can. And I know that's not all the time, but I think that Trey Galloway gives them, well, I know he gives them more than Parker Stewart has given them. He gives them more defensively and offensively. And I think that will also just help the team itself. They just seem to get bogged down sometimes. And I think that's going to happen. That doesn't mean Jack, and I could be as wrong as rain, and I'll say it, but it'll be obvious. So, but we'll see tomorrow. I don't know your thoughts on that.
I mean, it's going to be interesting. It has been interesting in the sense that Indiana's gotten off to some poor starts and there hasn't been some sort of lineup change. But clearly Mike Woodson likes the rotation he's been using all season. And for, in a lot of cases it's worked. But I mean, maybe he found something in that Northwestern game that he wouldn't have otherwise spotted. So it's going to be interesting to see how the team rebounds and if there are any specific lineup changes. I don't think that's a bad move if you start Trey Galloway over Parker Stewart, and then maybe you get a little additional spark off the bench from Parker Stewart. Sometimes that stuff works.
And you know what? Everyone was wondering, well, they're going to run their ass off this and that, but really you can't, because we also talked about trying to keep them fresh and needing them to have their legs and this and that. You can't kill. You'll have to find a way to do that, but it's kind of hard to do that in season now.
It is. It's very difficult. That's like a November punishment, right? Like when you play UC Irvine or some directional school that you can kind of afford to. You're going to win those games. Maybe that's what he did. Dustin glass half full, Schutte. I appreciate that. I tried to put a positive spin on things. I was negative for 4 years for so many years, and I really had nothing positive to mention. But what were we talking about? I lost my train of thought already. Probably time for a break anyway.
Yeah, we are. Absolutely. We got in the green room Jeffrey the Greek. So we'll be having some fun here in a minute with Spicy Schutte. Hey, you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. It's brought to you by our good friends at Remax Realty. If you're in the Indianapolis area and the market for a home, you need Cheryl Sizemore's 2 decades of experience. Could be the difference between you getting the home you want and not. Make sure you reach out to her, Cheryl, at IndyHomePros.com. Back with Jeffrey the Greek and more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
DS. This was the surprise today.
Nice. Could DS stay on for this?
He's on for this. He's on for this.
Nice, baby. Good.
I did.
I'm having a good Friday now.
Excellent. Oh my! I agreed to. We can only do an hour yesterday because of things, so I said I could co-host today too.
Just don't make me fucking talk about basketball, for fuck's sake. I do not want to talk. I have nothing to fucking add. I'm dead serious. If you turn to me, I'm just gonna say, put the ball in the hoop. That's my.
There you go.
Where's my phone? I gotta start texting John.
Jim did that to me one year. He just started talking about the Colts, and I'm like, I have not one clue what we're talking about.
For real. I could talk a little bit of the Super Bowl. The one
John,
funny thing I saw was,
John,
you see?
I'm texting John. Greek just dropped 3 F-bombs. You'll have to cover that in post.
Actually, that'll be me covering that in post.
I know. I'm kidding.
Wait, this is
John's not on. We've got John could not make it today. He's so upset that he couldn't be here.
We got the old guard in today. I used to be on before John.
But we're not. This isn't part of the deal right now. We're on break, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Oh.
Don't get nervous.
I'm editing in breaks in post.
Yes.
I don't need the FCC coming after me.
No,
the FCC don't want me be. Don't let me be on MTV.
Oh God, Jim, love you.
Roll it, baby. I'm ready.
But there was two funny tweets. Did you see how many 3-pointers Jordan Bohannon made last night?
It was 10, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was like 10 of 15. And somebody tweeted out, it's like watching Iowa's offense in football. They just get a 3 every time they have the ball.
Oh, man, that's great.
Yeah, I thought somebody might have said a one for every year he's been in college.
I was going to say, he's got to be the all-time leader in threes in the Big Ten by now.
I think. At Iowa, he is.
Now, the funny little nugget is because of injury, he actually got there faster than the last guy that held the 3-point.
No kidding.
3,
yeah, like 2, by 2 games. So it's actually.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends from Remax Realty. If you're in the home for the house in the Indianapolis area, reach out to Cheryl Sizemore. You need her 2 decades of experience. Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Jeffrey the Greek joining us now on a special Friday. We got Spicy Schutte with the Greek. They've known each other for quite a while. But he joined. Does he join you on Eyes on Big podcast, by the way? Jeffrey?
Oh, you're asking me? Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's been on 4 or 5 times, and we're gonna have him on 4 or 5 times more. Not my choice. It's really Kurt and Dustin's thing, but I just kind of go along.
Absolutely. How are things going for you out in Iowa, man?
Not in Iowa. I'm in Minnesota.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. I forget. You're up north.
That's okay. You can. We're actually we're getting like a snowy, icy, annoying snow right now. So hopefully it'll be over here pretty quick.
Petulant snow.
Yeah.
Get out of here. We were talking about Iowa basketball last night. Jordan Bohannon 10 threes. He should be the all-time leader in the Big Ten. I mean, he's only been there for 14 years. And he's had a hell of a career there at Iowa. I mean, when he leaves, he's going to be an old man. He's drawing a pension. He'll be on Social Security.
Yeah, I can only assume that the injury that was bothering him at the beginning of the year was his hip, because he's probably got to have some replacement surgery done here pretty quick.
I was going to guess arthritis, to be quite honest with you. I figured they would start to set in at this point in his career. He and Brad Davison both. But we were talking too about the. I mean, I think at some point this is a conversation for both the basketball and the football side of things to kind of steer in that direction. But at a certain point, I think that these COVID waivers are going to start to go away, where coaches tell players, "You've been here 4 or 5 years. It's kind of time to move on." Like, I think after this year, we'll probably start to see more of that. The interesting aspect of it is then where do these players go once they hit the transfer portal? Because if they get an extra year of eligibility, they're going to move on to some of these other places. And we talked about how that's also hurting these younger kids at the high school level, not getting those scholarship opportunities.
Yeah, lots of people stay in college for 7 or 8 years. They're called doctors.
It's a great poll.
Boom. Or Bohannon's.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, he'll be the first one to go right from college into the old man rec league.
And to keep it fair and equitable, I have to say Patberg's. Alec Patberg of Indiana is in her 7th collegiate season.
Really? Yeah.
I mean, you're going to start
injury, transfer injury. Just COVID. Transfer injury, COVID. It's just crazy how it worked out. But
the thing I always think about is, when I was at Iowa, you get the semester for redshirt, so you wind up being there 4.5 years. And certainly part of it was because I wasn't playing as much as I wanted to, but that last year and a half, it's a grind. You are ready to be done. The first year and a half, it's about a year. It's new, it's hard because it's new. Everything's, a little bit harder. Then you settle into a groove, you get used to it. And then somewhere around like 22, 23 years old, you start feeling like the old dude on the team. And then it's time to move. Like, you have the anxious thing going on in your head. Like, I'm not going to play in the NFL. almost everybody that plays, college sports is not going into the NFL or the NBA. So you start getting anxious to just get on with the rest of your life. I can't imagine, so I got to think that same thing applies to kids these days. So to see some of these guys hanging around 23, 24, 25, absolutely.
I'm sorry, are you talking about Wisconsin basketball?
Pretty much.
The team that last year was older, their average age was older than the Chicago Bulls.
That's insane.
I thought maybe that stat was made up, but if that's true, that's incredible.
It was absolutely true.
It was true. That was almost as talked about as Jake Ferguson being Barry Alvarez's nephew, and the size of Minnesota's offensive line is how frequent. But we were having a big reason Jim wanted us both on today was because we had more heated discussion about Big Ten division realignment. Man. I've heard that you've already breathed fire on this program about the thought of division realignment. And I don't know, I feel like you and I are quasi on the same page with this, but Jim is not.
I never am.
It's been established. We have Jim on the show for his good looks, and that's it.
Yeah. Right. Well, we're really in trouble then.
My official stance, it right now is like, okay, whatever, if it happens, it happens. I have this weird take that and I think I said this on the last show or 2 shows ago or whatever, but I have this weird take that when we look, like, let's say it started this year, if we looked at the next 10 years, till 2032 and looked back at the previous 10 years, methinks that the records of all the teams are going to look very similar. There's probably going to be 1 or 2 outliers, but
yes, that's because they haven't played the same record. They have not played, but they haven't played. The teams in the West are not playing what the teams in the East are playing. It is not done. There's no way that argument will hold up when if you're a Maryland, a Rutgers, and Indiana, you have to play Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State, Ohio State every year, guaranteed. The West has never had a 4-team slate like that, and the Big Ten East has it almost every year. And there's a reason that 4 different teams from the East have won the Big Ten championship, and 0 from the Big Ten West have.
Obviously, when you start comparing who's won the Big Ten, there's no argument here. And another thing I'd like to point out is I've never once said that the Big Ten West is as good or definitely or better than the Big Ten East. Nobody would say that with a straight face. What I'm saying is that the biggest difference between the East and the West is that Goliath that's in Columbus. Okay, so and everybody's going to have to go through Columbus to win the Big Ten championship, and now they're going to have to probably do it twice in 1 year. So I'm continually amazed that people can't grasp that, along with the fact that if it happens and it goes down, it's fine. But I swear I'm going to be on a personal vengeance on my podcast and on Twitter that if I see one Michigan or Penn State fan complain about the fact that they had to replay Ohio State in the Big Ten championship and lose to them, I am going to scream until I am red in the face, because it will fall on the deafest of deaf ears, because y'all do this. So deal with it. Like, Ohio State will benefit the most from this, and I will guarantee that is the case.
When do they not benefit by anything the Big Ten does?
Fair enough.
Here's the statistic that I ran, because I talked about this on a different show earlier this week. Every year, all but one season, if you completely eliminate divisions and you just take the top 2 teams, every single year, all but one season, Ohio State would have played in the Big Ten championship game. The other statistic I ran was a team from the Big Ten West, the current Big Ten West, would have played in 5 of those Big Ten championship games, and Michigan would have played in 2. So you can look at the schedule, but when let's say they're going to drop down to 8-game schedule, eliminate divisions, then you have a team playing 8 Big Ten games, and you're going to miss 5 Big Ten opponents. who's to say, let's just use Iowa because Greek is on, they could still possibly miss Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State, and Penn State. There's a theoretical path where they don't play any of those 4 teams anyway. So then what have you accomplished? You're not going to eliminate Michigan playing Michigan State. You're not going to eliminate Ohio State playing Michigan. You're not going to eliminate Iowa playing Nebraska, Wisconsin, or Minnesota. So what's the point? I'm of the belief that I don't care about, like, the realigning divisions is fine. I think the best thing to do would be, I think you even mentioned this on your podcast, Greek, switch Penn State, and maybe we disagree. I think we'll disagree on this one. I don't have as big of a problem with Michigan and Michigan State being in separate divisions, but those would be the only 2 things I would change is Michigan and maybe Penn State and maybe Michigan State. Other than that, I don't. Yep. You're going to have scheduling inequities no matter how you deal with this.
That's true.
100%. Like Dustin nailed it. Like you're not going to hardly be able to see. It's going to be 6 in one and half dozen in the other for what the schedules are going to look like pre-division and post-division. Because, and I don't mean to just rehash what you just said, but they're going to keep the rivalries together.
Right.
Michigan is going to play Michigan State and Ohio State every year. Iowa is going to play Minnesota and Wisconsin every year, probably Nebraska. So those games just aren't going to change. I'd like to put my hand up and say I'll trade Purdue for Rutgers, Indiana, Maryland right now. Thank God, because that's what it'll start happening. I have kind of honestly talked myself into. I mean, I first look at things from an Iowa point of view. It's where I played football. That's how I am. And then I look at it from a Big Ten as a whole. If I'm looking at this from an Iowa point of view, I can talk myself into that the divisions will actually benefit Iowa. So I haven't made up my mind on that. I just don't think it'll be that much of a difference that's going to hurt or help Iowa that much. I then switch to just the overall health of the league, and I'm with DS. I mean, I think flopping out Purdue and Penn State is the most equitable way to do it to make it. But Ohio State is still going to get. By the way, that's just going to make the path that much easier for Ohio State, because guess who Ohio State has had the most issues with over the last 6 or 7 years? It's been Penn State. So now maybe we make the Big Ten championship more compelling. But then I got another caveat. If that's how we did that, then you're going to hear people complain that it's Ohio State and Penn State in the Big Ten championship every year. So I ain't going to hear that either. You know, like, and the other thing too is just overall, there is no perfect way to do this. Okay. There is going to be it. So it's not like we have the bad option now and we simply just take the good option. There's just mediocre options. Like you're either getting the steak knife plunged into your left thigh or your right thigh. Which one do you want? Take your choice, because it's not going to be perfect.
Well, the funny thing that cracks me up is when they have divisions, there was never a point to them having divisions because of how the competition. It didn't matter. The games, you could lose a non-divisional game and it still mattered. What's the point of having divisions if you're doing that? You don't have divisions. All you're doing there, that's for scheduling purposes.
That's the one thing that I've been. I think that you should be judged only on your division record, and then those crossover games should be used like that's like basketball non-conference scheduling. You use that for your resume. So if a team's making the college football playoff push, those are those 3 extra games you get. I would much rather see, and this is why I think they should drop back down to 8. If you took just your division record, those 6 division games, because why is it fair for Wisconsin to have to play Ohio State, Michigan, and Indiana while Purdue is playing Indiana, Rutgers, and Maryland? And that theoretically could happen. So that's why I wish that they would move in that direction to where maybe they're not realigning, but let's say you're only based on your division record, and that's how we're going to determine the Big Ten or the East, the division champions. And then if there's a tiebreaker, then we'll go to those cross division games.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense. The problem with dropping down to 8, because if I had my choice, if I was Graham Poobah of all of college football, everybody would play 9 conference games and then a 10th game against a Power 5 opponent outside your conference with 2 gimmies, whatever you want to say.
Sure.
but we're not going to get that. We're going to get whatever the SEC does, because the SEC, I mean, this is a conference that digs up fake dirt to fire a coach that they don't want to have in there. Shock you. This is my shocked face that they would do not what makes sense for college football, but what makes sense for the SEC, which is eight conference games. And most of the time, they're playing another Power 5 team, but not all the time, because that's the easiest path for them. So if they're not going to budge, the Big Ten and the ACC and the Pac-12, aka the Alliance, they really don't have no choice except to go down to that, to stoop to their level and do that.
And this is the thing that you brought up on your podcast when you were going through. It was one
Eyes
of the
on
recent
Big Ten podcast, you mean?
Eyes on Big podcast. I don't remember who it was. It was from a different podcast that you broke down and did how every Big Ten team played 10 Power 5 opponents. Purdue played 11. Indiana was the only team that didn't, and they played Cincinnati, which made the college football playoff. To me, this is why I get frustrated about the SEC conversation. It is infinitely more difficult to play 10 Power 5 teams in a schedule. Oh, and by the way, the Big Ten typically, outside of maybe Wisconsin playing Army or Northwestern scheduling Bowling Green midway to late in the season, the Big Ten schedule is backloaded. They don't get that 1 week of cupcake schedule where every team in the SEC is playing an FCS opponent or a MAC opponent. That makes a big difference. You telling me that if Michigan, instead of having, I can't remember who they played before Ohio State, but instead of playing Maryland or Rutgers or whoever it was, that if they would have played Indiana State, they would not have been better prepared for potentially Georgia. I mean, that takes a toll on your body.
100%. And it's a free market society. And I got to give the SEC props in that They broke it down and said, what is the best way to do this that helps us out? They're doing it, Yep. So like I have to admit they're doing it the smart, best way. I care about other kids, but I really only care about mine. So I try to do what I can that's best for my kids. And that's essentially what the SEC is doing. I'm frustrated that we have to do this as well. There isn't a commissioner. Go figure, Kirk Ferentz, what could he possibly know about college football when he's been the head coach at this level for 22 years? But he has been screaming for a college football commissioner for about a decade now. We're going to get one at some point. But it has to happen.
Yes, the Big Ten is in definite need of a commissioner. I don't know how long they can go without one.
We actually have one.
I'm sorry. I must have.
The sentiment remains.
Well, that would probably get me in trouble.
You're not going to be getting one of these fancy mugs at media days next time, Jim. I can promise you that.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. Those cheap ass things, the Big Ten's peeled off of it. Don't put it in the dishwasher.
Why would you put it in the dishwasher?
Where do you clean your dishes?
Yeah, but you run your finger across this. You know that it's cheap. Why would you put it in the dishwasher?
Because it's cheap. I'm not going to take my time because they're cheap. Waste my time.
You know what you put in the dishwasher? This thing. Look at this. It's made out of metal, man. You can drop this thing out of the back of your truck. You just pick it up.
It looks like you have a few times. But you're right. You're absolutely correct. But yeah. I'm not going to get on that topic of the commissioner. But but so we'll see what they do. We're right on break time. Perfect. Let's take a break. We'll come back and let's have all just fun Friday conversation. We'll make the Greek talk about some basketball too. Just make him uncomfortable. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends at Southern Stone Restaurant in Bloomington. Back with more right after this.
All right.
Oh God, Jim, that was hilarious. I about pissed my pants laughing right there.
That was great.
What we were saying is the college football needs a commissioner, and Jim's like, "Yeah, the Big Ten does need a commissioner." Oh, that was hilarious. Oh God, that's funny. I hope people find that half as funny as me and Dustin did.
He's become my new Archie Miller.
Yeah.
Yeah, not nearly as bad, but I had to deal with Archie Miller every day.
Archie, God, I missed the Archie Miller Twitter.
The little Archie.
Little Archie,
Oh.
he was
that was
hilarious.
That guy was too damn funny.
Dustin turned me on to him, man.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Yes.
The funniest one I saw was they played entire March Madness in Indiana, and so they were assembling that court in at Assembly Hall, and one of the tweets was like, they told us we're not in March Madness, but yet they're putting the floor inside Assembly Hall, so joke's on them.
Yeah, right.
something in that regard.
Oh man,
I have a picture that someone made too. I got it off of Twitter. That it's daggone it, Purdue's Matt Painter, and he's holding Archie like a little baby.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
By the way, I didn't watch last night, Dustin. What the hell happened?
Purdue's defense was god awful, and when they can't hit shots, I'm not overly impressed. They're so streaky. I can't think of a good comparison, but I don't think they're a Final Four team.
No. Why would they be? They're not a Final Four program.
The way they talk about Jaden Ivey, I mean,
they're not a Final Four program.
Okay,
I'll be dead ass. I don't even know who Jaden Ivey is, just to give you an idea of
George Mason also not a Final Four program. Butler not a Final Four program. Teams make runs.
Oh, I don't. Right. Yeah, I mean, it's not fair to say that, I guess, in that manner. Anybody can get there, but I think that
they don't have the national prestige, which is correct.
And usually it's not a team from the Big Ten that gets there is usually not one of the lower level teams, not lower level, but not one of it. It's usually one of the top teams from the Big Ten that gets there. And because you go through the Big Ten season and it's a grind.
Correct. Well, okay. My counter to that would be Wisconsin. Made it back. It was back-to-back years, wasn't it?
Yeah, but they were pretty damn good, man.
We're making the same argument.
They could play defense.
Well, that's my point, right?
They were good on both ends of the floor. Purdue is not.
Right.
That's my point. They're not, and they're so.
Purdue's not good defensively this year.
No,
not at times. They're very susceptible.
Not at times. Not all. They rank.
Well, it depends on who they're playing.
The bottom half of shooting percentage, opponent shooting percentage, opponent points per game. There was another one. Opponent 3-point percentage, maybe. There was another one I looked at last night. It's not good.
So Iowa and Purdue are kind of Spider-Man memeing it right now.
Yes.
Sweet.
Very much so.
Oh, what else could we come up with? Great conversation. I had something a minute ago that I was just thinking of and I forgot.
I got plenty of high school sports news if you want that.
No, thank you. We're good. There's a way.
Man, I know it's only 9:14 here, but I feel like drinking already. Like I think it might be an early bourbon day for Jeffrey the Greek.
There you go.
Well, you know what? There's a New York sour, a drink called a New York sour that oh man, people. There's Logan and Waylon met him at the airport. I got to throw his name out. A couple of kids.
This is the thing I love about these. This is why I love doing this show because it's crazy.
We're back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, everybody. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you on this Friday. Hope you're having a great one and ready to get your weekend started. Indiana taking on Michigan State tomorrow, and a game that they need in a lot of ways, but it's not one that they're necessarily expected. They're not expected to win. They wouldn't be expected to win this game in any circumstance leading up to this. And now, but during Archie's tenure, Michigan State was the only caliber team that they were able to beat unbelievably. And they did it twice. So Indiana has experience up winning at Michigan State when they were not supposed to. So it's not like it can't happen. And now you add in the fact, and this could be any sport, Greek, what just happened to Indiana with the 5 suspensions, losing a close game to a team that they should have just beaten and still should have won without the 5 guys. But anyway, they lose that game. It puts them in a little peril. Now, how do these guys respond? How does this team respond? So maybe that helps them. Maybe they go up there and pull off the upset. I don't know. We'll certainly get to find out, Dustin. But this happens. It doesn't matter. It could be football. It doesn't matter. Sometimes it works out in a positive, in a weird way. Not sure that that's be the case here, but there's always that possibility.
Well, I mean, I mentioned it earlier. Like Mike Woodson has basically established that he's a no-nonsense. Well, I mean, maybe I shouldn't. That might be too harsh, but in the sense that he's trying to establish his culture, and if you break the rules, you're going to serve a punishment. We talked about Kelvin Sampson didn't do that. Tom Crean at the later parts of his tenure at Indiana didn't do that. Archie Miller didn't do that. So there's sort of this learning curve here, and I think it's to me it's a matter of, again, am I going to go pout about me being suspended for the last game, or am I going to come out and own up what I did and be a leader and try to? I think this is a really good matchup for Indiana. The way Michigan State turns the ball over, and the way Indiana defends, I think they have a great shot to get an upset. Plus, Michigan State is just not playing up to Michigan State caliber. But again, when you lose 2 straight, there's probably no coach I'd rather have than Tom Izzo to fire my team up for a weekend game at the Breslin Center. So the little Archie chant was golden. I don't remember that.
I think he meant we were talking about it about Twitter thing a minute ago.
Right.
Or maybe was there a little Archie chant
I don't remember.
or whatever.
Oh, I don't know.
Must
if
have
there was, I
happened at
wasn't.
someplace.
Yeah, if it was, I missed that.
By the way, we missed somebody messaged Spicy Schutte was my favorite Spice Girl, which I thought was hilarious. We never
I put that up. That was up.
That was
earlier. Earlier, I was
Spice Girl.
called Dustin Half Glass Full Schutte, so I've got a couple nicknames already.
He's got that going for him, which is nice.
Some call me Weezy because of how I laugh.
Pessimistic? They think you're a little pessimistic?
No, I was actually being optimistic for once.
Oh, hey, Super Bowl bets.
Oh,
Super
this is
Bowl.
a good one.
The Super Bowl period. First of all, you got this. Can we say that? Can we say that word? I'm kidding, but Super Bowl, how they are, the Super Bowl, how protective they are of the word Super Bowl, and all that stuff. Anyway, I think it's going to be a great Super Bowl. Doesn't mean it's going to be, but I think Cincinnati has surprised a lot of us. They probably surprised some NFL people, but you don't get there not deserving to be there and not having the ability to win. And they're not playing the top seed on the other side. These are the 2 lowest seeds to make it to the Super Bowl with seeding. So I think it's going to be pretty entertaining.
Yeah, in the conversation of how to set things up to get the 2 best opponents in the final game, I mean, I don't think you can do it much better than the NFL playoffs. And there's still people complaining about this matchup. And I think that's ridiculous. Both teams deserve to be. I mean, obviously they got through the playoff schedule to get here. I'm very excited. I love seeing new blood in there. I'm happy for Matthew Stafford. I laugh every time I say him because he was stuck in the toilet for 12 for whatever it was in his second year out, and he makes it into the Super Bowl. Like if anything could rub the Detroit's nose in the dirt anymore, Stafford's doing it. It's incredible. But anyways, like long story short, I'm happy for him. Everybody seems to love Joe Burrow. Like I don't know how he's done it, but like everybody loves Joe Burrow. I can't wait to watch the Super Bowl.
And the interesting thing that I thought about this is, and I saw this tweet and it didn't really, cross my mind until I saw it. But the fact that he's been compared already, and it's premature, but he's been already compared to Tom Brady. And Tom Brady won his first Super Bowl against at the time, the St. Louis Rams, and now Joe Burrow gets the chance to potentially win his first Super Bowl against and speaking to the new blood, I don't understand the people that want to see like the premier teams or whatever in the Super Bowl. I don't, whatever, whoever gets there gets there. But the interesting thing about this is there's only one player, which is Ricardo Allen, on the Bengals with Super Bowl experience. So that's going to be a really interesting thing to watch. Is the situation too big, or sometimes I feel like being young and kind of, not to paint the bad picture, but being young and dumb to the scenario might be beneficial for Cincinnati. They may not know the magnitude of the situation, if that makes any sense.
It helped me get through my 20s. Yeah, that much.
How about this? Brian would like to have seen the Colts have found a way to land Stafford. Yeah, of course, a lot of people would have. Anybody. The Colts need to. They're not. I don't know if they're going to be able to.
There's a running back. There's a running back from the Colts from the lowly Big Ten West that I was told over and over again wasn't going to be that good of a NFL running back because he was just playing.
How about me?
I mean, there was literally people that called him slow. That dude is one of the fastest
Wisconsin produces running backs. I mean,
but that's the take. That's the lazy takes. People literally were dogging on him because he played at Wisconsin. It's the stupidest thing in the world.
Well, you grew up playing in the snow, so it's hard to run in the snow.
As far as
just went right by
as far as gambling plays in the big contest that is on Sunday, one of my favorite ones is you can bet. So you can bet on if the ball is returned on the opening kickoff, and then there's a bet where they set the over/under at the yard line that the returner would return to. So let's say you put $10 on every yard. They set the over/under at like the 24 or 25. So anything under that, you pay $10 a yard. Anything he goes over that, you win $10 a yard. Pretty fun little bet. And one of my special buddy is convinced they take a little air out of the football so that it is the opening kickoff is returned. They don't want it to go out of the back of the end zone. So I don't know. It's kind of a fun little thing. To pay attention to.
So say that again.
It's confusing, but I don't know. I have to check on where the over/under yard line is set. But let's just say it's at the 25, right? So if let's say he returned the ball to the 15-yard line and he got tackled, and you bet $10 a yard, you'd be out $100 because he's 10 yards short of the 25. If he returned it to the 35, you would win $100. So obviously some people are putting, $100, $1,000 a yard on this. So if whoever bet on the over, if you can remember the Devin Hester opening kickoff versus the Colts, take $100 times whatever. I mean, we're talking it's like $7,500 that you would have won on the opening kickoff if you took the over.
Wow.
So that's crazy. That's a fun one to look out for.
Absolutely, because I'm out.
Yeah.
I would literally leave wherever I was and be out. I would take my money and I'm out.
This is the non-football one, but I'm always interested on how excited people get on the over/under of the national anthem time. That's always one that is really interesting to me, just because people lose their mind before we've even gotten to kickoff.
The thing I don't understand about that is obviously the singer can get in on the action. She could retire right then and there. What do you need this at? Under 2.5 minutes, done. Cut off a couple of the, O's and A's and be done with it.
That's a great point. That's something I've never ever thought about.
Because you don't have as deviant gambling brain as I do. That's good. It means you're a good guy, Dustin. I'm a degenerate.
And he can't sing.
I cannot sing.
Nobody in this little black box can sing. I don't think.
I bet you Jim sounds like Pavarotti in the shower.
Pavarotti's probably not the description I would give it. Potty is close, maybe potty. That's a little closer. Yeah. Are you making, what bets are you going to make? Are you just betting on the game overall? Are you getting into any of the prop bets?
Yeah, I'll bet on something of the game just so I have something to go for, and I want Cincinnati to win, so that's probably where I'll go just so I can have a little more oomph behind it.
Dustin?
I'm not a gambling man. I don't have a lot of money, so I'm just gonna go to the liquor store. Georgia. I'm going to go to the liquor store, get some bourbon, pick up some beer, and probably make a giant pot of chili and just enjoy the Super Bowl and just watch. Like I think the betting aspect of it is interesting, but if I put my own money, I guarantee you I will be in debt so bad that it's just, to me, it's not worth it. So I mean, obviously, it's a big-time market. A lot of people have a lot of fun with it. I just know my luck, and so I have no intention of placing any bets this week.
Studio.
Is that another nickname?
No, I was kidding. Five Left said I sing like Phil Collins.
You kind of look like Phil a little bit.
I've got hair, baby. I've got hair.
You know.
Still got the hair hanging on. Yeah, I won't be making the bets either. I'm just going to enjoy it. It's too much stress. I'm like, I'm not rich. So I'm like, oh man, I can't. Losing drives me insane in any way. Period. Whether it's competition or money, I'm like, I can't stand to lose. Especially losing a bet, you're just sitting there watching it. You can't do a damn thing about it. You're like, oh.
Every time Jim has placed a bet, we've come on this show, or he sent me a text message that says, X a team has cost me a 3-team parlay. and it's always
my fault. He asked me for gambling advice. I give it to him. It doesn't hit. And then he comes at me. I'm like, oh man, this is a thankless job.
It's terrible. He's terrible. No, I'm kidding. That was my thing. I like to bet the little 3-team parlays. Not betting them big because you don't have to bet them big. That's the great thing about them. 25 or $50 can get you $350 or more a lot.
Speaking of, did you see that exacta the guy hit in the AFC NFC championships?
I did not.
I think it was only a $25 bet. But he accurately predicted the final score and winner of both the AFC and NFC championships. So his $25, I mean, it netted him, I think it was $500,000.
Yeah, it was over 500,000.
Wow. What all did the bet contain?
So basically he predicted that the final score, I mean, I don't have them in front of me, was that the Rams would win 17-14 and that the Bengals would win, whatever it was, 28-24. Like he nailed it dead on, which is basically possible.
Right.
But the harder thing was the guy that back at the beginning of the season that hit every NFL game going in, just picking winners. And it was an initial bet with one of the services, like I think it was a free bet. But he picked every game correctly, and it got to the last one, and I think it was worth over 700,000, but they didn't win.
Isn't that always how it goes?
15 of 16 NFL games. Or how many?
Okay.
So he picked one game every week and got everyone.
Or however many their games were on the day. This was 1 week on the Saturday deal. He picked every correct winner on a weekend. And lost the last game.
The way you phrase that, I thought you meant he picked every single NFL game for the entire season correctly.
I'm like,
I
was going to do
it was 1 weekend. But that's still, can you imagine that? 1 weekend picking every game?
No, that's impossible. I mean, they should do a 30 for 30 on that guy.
And it was on it was an initial bet.
Yeah.
Crazy. We are getting close to getting out. Not quite there yet. Got about a minute and a half to go. But sorry, so no betting, just drinking and making chili. Bourbon. You're going to get bourbon. So I forget if it was you I was telling or not, but a new drink someone introduced to me the other night, New York sour.
Okay.
And if you hear the ingredients, you're going to go, oh, but it actually tasted pretty daggone good. It's topped up. I'll tell you, it has this in it, 2 of the ingredients, egg white and red wine.
I'm out on anything egg white.
You don't taste it, and it's for froth.
Have you ever heard of before we go, have you ever heard of the lunchbox? This is probably a little bit more common. But it's amaretto, orange juice, and I think beer. I think that's it. And it sounds disgusting, but it's actually really good.
Quick, we got about 45 seconds left. I forgot to mention this. Yeah, Indiana's opening game next year with Illinois moved to Friday night. I hate the Friday night games, period. Hate them. They are for high schools, and leave it alone, man. They have one damn night a week. It's not even like basketball where they play 2 or 3 nights a week. They've got one freaking day. It reminds me of the movie Concussion. I love this line where I forget the actor's name, but he's talking to Will Smith, and he said, Sundays used to belong to the church. Now it belongs to the NFL. And his point was making even the NFL was bigger than God in essence. He's not, but that's the point that he was making. And I forgot what I was
getting deep in here, right?
It was just great, Hey, this fun stuff. But I guess we might as well get too deep. Let's just go have fun. Everybody else, I'll go out and have a great day. Can't thank everybody enough. Cannot thank Spicy Schutte enough, and our good friend the Greek. Don't forget to give them a follow. Eyes on Big podcast with his friend Kurt. We have not had Kurt on here yet. We got to get Kurt on sometime, but he's Greek says he's lazy. He doesn't want to come on.
Well, Indiana and Illinois, so that would be a great time with the season opener being that game. He'd be a great guest for that.
We'll do that. You guys go out and have yourselves a great weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Have fun. Of course, I'll be back tomorrow after the game. To see what happens with Indiana and Michigan State. Guys, go out and have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks.
To you too. You bet. And everybody else, can't thank you enough. Thanks to Will for filling in today as well. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.